Well, it's almost Christmas time, and it seems like nowadays half the year it's Christmas time, and getting over it takes a month and a half too. So most of the year is Christmas time, but Christmas is a time of giving gifts and family and cheer. But a lot of times you go to these parties and there's a white elephant gift where you pass it back and forth. It's kind of odd, but you can, if you know the game, you can steal each other's gifts and do everything. And so I think it's real important that we use this connotation with the Hebrew Bible, looking at Christmas and the white elephant in the room. Crazy name, elephant. ELFant. He gives forth a trumpet like El. That's his name. Elephant. He is from the Levant area and into Africa, through India and into Asia, but wasn't really seen up through Anatolia, Greece, and anywhere up north. Was trapped in the southern area apparently during the last ice age for its development. There was even a dwarf elephant that was found on an island which now they believe to be the Cyclops of old, for it had about 3 times the size of a human head, and where the eye is on an elephant, they're on the side. These glasses wouldn't work for an elephant because the eyes are on the side of his head, and so it looks strange when you look at the skull of one, but there's a big hole in the middle of it, and it looks kind of like the eye socket where the trunk goes in. And so that's where the Cyclops story comes from, and a lot of the giants of old are just dinosaur bones and big colossal creatures like this. And they talk about how the thundering of these certain creatures and stuff of primordial time that were giants were what created the thunder for Zeus's deal, and the brightness and the thunder, and there's 3 gods that make it up and such. But that'd be the thunder of these creatures running across the plain, that they are the thunder beasts, and they're like the rumbling on earth that it is in the sky. This is one of the so it is on earth as it is in heaven. Not too many elephants roaming around anymore, though. They really need a lot of vegetation and apparently a little bit more moisture than they're facing in Africa, as it turns all into a wasteland of desert. But I digress. Elephants. Elephants are related to the Canaanite god El. El had a son who was the storm god himself, Baal. And Baal was the creature, entity, god that made lightning and thunder. And he brought the storms and the rain that fertilized the fields and did everything. They could plant seeds, but nothing would happen without Baal. They could do a lot of things, but nothing would happen with him. So he was the primordial god that came across the waters and separated those and so on. And so this is your story of Baal. And there are lots of Baal worshippers in your Bible. There's the story of Baalim, if you'll look it up, that actually has a story of a talking donkey. Yeah, just like in Shrek, there's a talking donkey too. That's another white elephant in the room. But if you remember right, the first of the Bible, there's a lady that grows from a rib and eats from a magic tree because the talking snake told her to. And these Canaanites, they have a lot of talking creatures, the creatures that say what they should say if they could actually speak, kind of things. It kind of speaks for the animal in some of their stories. And I believe that's where you get it from in the Bible. So let's look at some things about El and see if we can figure out something. El is the god of the Canaanite pantheon, but it is also the god of the patriarchs of the Bible. When Abraham leaves Ur, because they're all idol worshippers, strangely enough, just 6 years after Noah passes away, no one remembers being in the boat. Even the kids that were there in the boat remember that. It's always a strange thing in the Bible. Also, and if there was only those 3 kids and we're only great-grandsons at this point, there's not enough account for the people in the Bible that Abraham runs into over here, much less the people that are even around in the cities that are actually existed by name. It's odd. And then we come to find out in modern times that the cities over in Babylon were built on top of themselves, and actually they go back to probably 7,000 BC and talk about times at around 10,000 BC, whenever their home hub was closer up in Arata, up in the cedar forest that used to be up there, that still has good remnants of it up there, and that's the Arata people. In fact, they talk of the Lord of Arata and things that they did back then, and we're looking at the Arata civilization now, and it seems to date at about 10,500 BC. And that correlates with the whole thing that I came up with about the great cataclysm that happened at the end of the last ice age too, at 10,500 BC, where we were struck by a meteor, and it caused a great flood. All happened at once. That's seen as the Younger Dryas area, or era, and sea areas rose 400 feet in a matter of a short period of time, at least 200 or 300 foot in some areas, but in all intents and purposes, people that weren't connected to each other watched the world just flood out. And of course, primordial people all live right near riverbanks and everything else, and if it all flooded out pretty bad, then and giant tidal waves came through because of the strike, then that would have been the great flood of Noah, and it wouldn't have been caused by just rain. But even in the Noah description, it doesn't describe it as just rain. It says that the great waters get shot up and everything happens off of that, and then it rains for 40 days and 40 nights. So, well, if a meteor was to hit out in the Atlantic Ocean and spew stuff all across North America and up in the atmosphere, then it would probably rain on Earth for at least 40 days and 40 nights and cause great floods and tidal waves. But I digress, because we're talking about a white elephant in the room. Although I guess the white elephant is just stuff in the Bible too, but let's look at let's see. Let me look at the Canaanite god El. It would be a good idea if we just look up him. And this could show you what the information is on him. Canaanite god El. And it'll have all the other guys in there and stuff, but here's El. And there's a picture of Baal, so that's not even El, but these are arrested. These are all El. And El is actually known as Saturn. And so you look at this, and what's odd is that in El, you definitely see this name being used in the Bible constantly, this El. And it's used for the name of God. I wish I had a better picture of this right now that wasn't quite fuzzy, but El as an epitaph on a name, like El this, El that, in the Bible, is listed about 230 times. I think I got 232 times, wasn't it? Is listed in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew, if you look at the Old Hebrew, because it always talks about God as being El Shaddai, El Elyon, El Olam, and these are all epitaphs of God, but in those epitaphs, it's God of the this, God of the that. Whenever it's saying that, the word God is El. Whenever it's in Genesis 33:20, El is the God of Israel, it actually says El Eloha Israel. What does that mean? It means El is the God of Israel. That's exactly what that means. That statement right there. El is the God Israel. It doesn't even really say of. It just says El is the God Israel. And that is strange. It also tells you that El is the God of your father. Straightforward in Genesis 46:3. Then he said, I am God, the God of your father. In that verse, when it says, I am El, the Eloha of your father. So he is El. El is the God of the patriarchs. When you look at all the angels' names, you find that the angels' names are GabriEL, Raphael, Azazel, Ariel, GabriEL. There's Michael. It's Michael, but no, it's Michael. And in fact, the name Angel. The counsel of God is the Elohim. These are the Canaanite gods that Abraham left and came to worship. He left Sumeria and came to this area and started worshiping Baal, which this is the effigy of Baal. This is what the Hebrews were worshiping whenever they worshiped their Canaanite gods you see in the Bible and stuff. That there would be a pit inside of here, and they would feed their babies to this, their firstborn. At Mount Sinai, he asked for their firstborn. This is the god of the Canaanite pantheon. Here's a picture of what he looked like. That has to be satanic in some way. In fact, the picture before has to exactly be somehow not godly at all. This bull worshiping things, and you say, well, that's not, no, that's not who they're worshiping. God said not to. No, if he said not to, then why did they name all their children Nathaniel, EziekiEL, ELisha for the prophets? The name of the house of God is BethEL. BethEL is the house of God. Well, Beth is house, as in Bethlehem, and El is the name of God. God is El. El lives on a mountain. He has a big gray beard. He lives in a tent that he wants them to build for him, called a tabernacle. Does any of this sound familiar? Well, it should. People have called it paganism, but what we really have here is Baal worship, where you can see they used to feed their children into this creature here that has a hole in it. And if you'll look real close, over here, there are people making a fire under this. What does the fire do? Well, there's all these guys rattling and making noises and blowing horns. So the parents of the child that are out here are not hearing the screams of the child as it sears when it lands on the arms and falls into the altar and cooks into a place that they call Gehenna. Sounds just like hell, doesn't it? And they describe it as the child falls in and there is a gnashing of teeth. And so whenever you hear about this in the Bible, this is when they're going to cause human sacrifice. And if you'll look here, there's two children. You see this? Two children right here? And they are watching and seeing the fire burn and knowing what's going to happen to that little baby. And they might be next because they look like they've been separated from the rest of the group. This is not real cordial to talk about. And you say, well, no, it's not. But you'd have to know what the Israelites used to do and where they got their name from. I mean, people have made the connection a long time ago that it's really a combination of the theory of Isis, Ra, and El make up Israel. But what another connection there is, see, what the Jews knew. Let's see what this guy says. The evolution of God. El was the name of the Semitic word for God. El and his wife Asherah, the mother of Baal. Canaanites. El, the supreme God. Abraham, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The God of the Father is identified with the Canaanite God El. Yahweh, originally a Bedouin war god of the desert before Moses. And then they say, oh, replace all the words in the Bible with Lord Yahweh, Lord Yahweh, Lord Yahweh, and then act like we can't say Yahweh and replace it with, a Greek god like Adonis. So they call him El Adonai. And that still throws the L on it. Isn't that just, well, no about the L thing because we killed them all. And you're like, no. About 2,000 years later, people are going to finally dig this shit up and figure out what's going on here. And wow, but the Jews knew this the whole time. The whole time. They've known their heritage. And so, who is El? Well, El is Saturn, believe it or not. Let's see if I can make that connection for you. Let me just, let's go to Wiki, the place everyone's going to hate. But still, El, written Aleph Lamed, which is really AL kind of in their thing, but Ugaritic Phoenician, and it's the bull sign and the L. This is famous in your Bible for meaning God. It's in Akkadian, it's Ulu, or Elu. It's a Northwest Semitic word meaning God or deity. Well, who are the Semites? Exactly. And everybody says, oh, they didn't come from there. Later, they had to act like they did, and they ran around in the desert for a while they were waiting to kill all these people off and steal their land and their religion. Are you listening to me? Let's all put out a real big amen to the moon god. Amen. There we go. Pray to that moon god. Specific deities known as El or Il include supreme god of the Canaanite region. So who is this? Well, in a minute I'll have a Yale scholar who is known as a world authority on ancient Near East and their religions and beliefs, and she can tell you about it too. Let's see if I can get there real quick though. But so Semitic root of Il is Arabic Elah and Allah. So there you go. It's the same guy. In Hebrew it'd be Eloha. Okay, so it's the same guy. Now what we have is people over there fighting for the same guy. Okay, but because of Semitics, you know what Semitics are, the Semitic people. Semitics are little bitty bullshit because you say he had green eyes and I said it was blue. Now we're going to fight to the death. Yeah, and so they end up with these slight little things about it that's caused the world to be fighting each other for ever since too. If you notice, this religion brings about everybody wanting to fight. And the strange thing is they say Baal's son was named Feud and he was released on the earth too. The feud. I wonder where the feud landed out and started doing. Well, I guess I could probably pinpoint where in the world the feud landed and started at, but let's get away from that here real quick. So, Il is Eastern Semitic and everything. It's all the name of God, Egyptian Ptah. I'm not going to go through all this type of stuff, but just to show you that El is the creator of Earth. El Con Ars is El, the creator of Earth. Okay, so El is believed to be the great creator and stuff, and El is Saturn. And I'm not sure I can get. Now, there El is a generic word. Here it is on the Hebrew Bible, and they're going to talk about Elohim and things like that. But even Yahweh even changes the name of God right there in the Bible, where in Exodus 6:2 and 3, he says, I revealed myself to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai. So I was that God of the mountain of El, but was not known to them by my name Yahweh. And so they go, okay, so that's an equation thing. No, now they're telling you that El is Yahweh. You see this? It's just that simple, people. I can't believe we've been in a fog for 2,000 years. But El has the destruction of Leviathan, where Baal, his son, the storm god, comes down and destroys the giant serpent, Leviathan, and that happens off in the same stories. Yahweh is clearly envisioned as a storm god, something not of true El so far as we know, but his son Baal Hadad, which is listed in the Bible. It is Yahweh who is prophesied to one day battle Leviathan, the serpent, to slay the dragon in the sea, Isaiah 21:1. The slaying of the serpent is the myth, is the deed attributed to both Baal Hadad and Anat in both the Ugaritic texts, but not to El's son Baal. Well, if you remember, Saturn is the only kid that he doesn't eat because they're cannibals, and so the only kid they don't eat is their kid that's the storm god. Saturn doesn't eat Zeus, and Zeus was the storm god with the lightning bolt, and his name is Zeus. They put a us on the end of everything, so Z is really just the ancient Z. I mean, it's a lightning bolt. Z, Z. So the Romans steal everything from everybody else and then simulate it in, just like they did the Bible and a lot of other people. And the Greeks, we all know they sucked in the Greeks real hard. They just kind of whoosh me and pulled them in like a sponge and said yours is the same as our beliefs and everything. Well, they did the same thing here because El is Kronos, and Kronos was the Phoenician. If you look it up, it's going to tell you that Kronos is the Phoenician. Now, in the same area that's down there, everybody is known as satyrs, right? Satyr, right? Satur, or we spell it Satyr, but Satur. And in fact, Saturday is the worship of El, Saturn, and if you'll look it up, the Hebrews actually, up until the time that the Romans took over and changed their religion and turned it into what it is today, the ancient day of worship was Saturday. And they changed it to Sunday whenever Jesus was coming. And then, of course, he's the Son of God, and he's the Mithra thing, and so Mithra's worshipped on Sunday, so they're going to have to mock the Mithra thing and then worship him on Sunday, Sol Invictus, and all their Sunday things, and they changed the day that we even worship the God on that we're supposed to be worshiping. But are we supposed to be worshiping El? Well, right there it tells you that El is Yahweh. He told you himself he was. And so Elohim, you can always see it. You know, everybody knows now Elohim means that it's actually a plural form of the word, that they could just put El, but if they just put El, then that would not be good. So they put Eloha, which that means the God, and that's fine, but they don't put I am the God, your God. They put I am Elohim, and they says I am a council of gods. It's actually a group, and it's plural. So in the Song of Moses, Exodus 15:11, who is like you amongst the God, Elim? Yahweh? So it actually asks if Yahweh is like El. It's pretty strange right there. But, and this appears in Phoenician inscriptions as late as the 5th century BC, that they find this still listed as Il, Elim, El, and they're still using that for the word in the Bible that are there. There's whenever they in Ezekiel 28:2, and I've seen this before in the taunt against a man who claims to be divine. In this instance, it's the leader of Tyre. He says, "Son of man, say to the prince of Tyre, thus says the Lord Yahweh, because your heart is proud, and you have said, I am El in the seat of Elohim. I am enthroned in the middle of your seas. Yet you are a man and not El, even though you have made your heart like the heart of Elohim." Those are the words right there, people. It's El. El is the God of the patriarchs. I don't know if I even have to really show you the divine council, the whole 9 yards, Sanctiathon, Biblos. Let's see. Is he gonna tell you here? Because this is one thing that's important. He tells you that no. Right here, there's going to tell you that the Phoenician word. It doesn't show it. The Phoenician word for the god and the wandering star, Saturn, because you know Rome's and all these people, pagan people, used to worship the stars as gods, right? That's why they have Mars and Saturn, and they equate them to gods, right? Well, believe it or not, the whole world was doing it. It's in the Sumerian stuff. It's everywhere, and I think they got it from the Sumerians, because we can find out now that the Sumerians come way before everybody else, but they're worshiping them as gods. And there's Kronos, who is Saturn, right? And the ancient Phoenician word for that star, Saturn, was Israel. The whole word, not even just El, it was Israel. And what is Isra? Isra is a man, right? Ish, man. So we can go through this again, but Poseidon actually, the god of thing, is considered El, the god of the sea, and the name of the Babylonian god, water god Ea, who is Enki. This is inscriptionless El in the second place is the local pantheon. Balaam Shamim preceding the eternal sun, right? Elohim. Enlil is looked at as being the storm god. Anu was the god over them. Let me see if I can find this real quick for you. I don't know how long we're going on this video, but Hebrew Bible Yale. So you just type in Hebrew Bible Yale. Let's see here.
That the God who covenanted with the patriarchs is the God of the Exodus, but now with a new name. They also, like today, they want to assert continuity. But in doing so, they do it in a way that really ultimately draws attention to the fundamental discontinuity, the sense of a new beginning. And to understand that new beginning, we need to...
I'm going to back it up just to hear people.
It's always known. J wants to assert a direct continuity between the God of the patriarchs and the God of the Exodus. The P and E sources tell it a little differently. Exodus 6, verses 2 to 4, very important passage. Exodus 6, verses 2 to 4. It's assigned to P, and here God says, I am Yahweh. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai, but I did not make myself known to them by my name, Yahweh. Now this contradicts the J source. And many scholars have suggested that P and E preserve a memory of a time when Israel worshipped the Canaanite god El. P and E wish to claim that the God who covenanted with the patriarchs is the God of the Exodus, but now with a new name. They also, like J, they want to assert a continuity. But in doing so, they do it in a way that really ultimately draws attention to the fundamental discontinuity, the sense of a new beginning. And to understand that new beginning, we need to look at the differences between patriarchal religion and the new Yahwism. There's a list on your handout, so I hope everyone got a copy of the handout. If you didn't...
Did you get a copy of your handout?
Raise your hand, and
I'm
if
sorry.
you have any left,
just follow along.
I want to take a look at these differences between patriarchal religion, Mosaic Yahwism. This is going to help us. This list is based on information that's supplied by many scholars. I've relied very much on Michael Coogan, but others as well. Look first at the sheet that gives you the titles of God. And you'll see that in the patriarchal traditions, all right, so we're talking about Genesis primarily. I've thrown in some other texts also, but focusing for a moment on the patriarchal traditions of Genesis, God is 6 times called El Shaddai. Other names are El Elyon, El Olam, El Roi, El BethEL. You can see the translations of these. The everlasting God, God Most High, a God of seeing, the God of the house of God, and so on. El is the name of the chief God in the Canaanite pantheon. Flip over to the other side of your handout, where I discuss an important set of texts that were discovered at a place called Ras Shamra. Ras Shamra was ancient Ugarit. In 1928, a peasant in Syria discovered a tomb at Ras Shamra, which was subsequently excavated by the French, and it was found to contain a library of tablets that were written in a language very, very close to Biblical Hebrew. It's clear that Hebrew is simply a Canaanite dialect. In fact, I remember reading one scholar said, if you go back far enough, you're really hard-pressed to tell the difference between Canaanite and Hebrew.
It's the same.
And in these texts, we read of the exploits of the gods of Canaanite religion. These gods include the sky god El, I've listed here, the father of the various gods and humans. El has a wife, Asherah, she's listed 3rd on your paper, a mother goddess, their daughter Anat, who is a goddess of love and war, she's quite fierce, and then their son Baal, who is a storm god. He is depicted in mythological literature as defeating both the chaotic sea god, the sea god Yam, and the god of death, Mot. There are striking resemblances between the biblical God of the patriarchs and the Canaanite god El. El is the head of the council of gods. He is said to have a long white beard. He dwells on a mountain top in a tent. His epithets include father of all creatures, bull, king. He is also described as the protector of patriarchs, patriarchal figures, a god of the father of the clan, it says in the text. He guides them, he protects them, he promises them descendants. Many biblical passages depict God exactly this way, as the head of a council of divine beings. He's occasionally described with some of the epithets that are associated with El. He's referred to as the father of all creatures. There are poetic passages in which he is referred to as bull, also certainly as king. And in the patriarchal narratives, God refers to himself as the God of the Father. I am the God of the Father, the same way El is referred to. He guides and protects the patriarchs. He makes promises of progeny to Abraham and his heirs. He also is associated with a mountaintop, Sinai, and gives instructions for the building of a tabernacle, a tent-like structure in which he will dwell. Many personal and place names in the patriarchal narratives are compounds in which one element is El. Yisrael, Ishmael, BethEL. El is the God of the patriarchs. By contrast, after the time of Moses, Israelite names start to be formed using Yah or Yahu as part of the name Yahweh. Elijah, in Hebrew, is Eliyahu. So you start to have theophorics, names that use.
But I would say that ELisha, and she's saying, well, that's Eliyahu, and so they start using some Yahoo. But didn't it start with ELisha? So that's a person who's trying to equate. The prophet Elijah is the guy that does the blending in the soup. And there we have it, right there, from Hebrew scholars from Yale that are world-renowned to the stuff that I've found, and you try to equate it up together. And there's your white elephant that's in the room. ELefant is in the room. Enjoy. Check out some of my other videos on the topic. Thanks.